Good afternoon. Welcome to Flint Talk Radio. I'm Sam Jahari.
I'm Charlie Buckley. Good afternoon.
We are Community Parent. And there's been a lot of stuff going on in the news. I don't know if you heard, the killings over in California. Everything is related to drugs, whether you want to look at it in that way or not. But the mental health issue has a lot to do with the drug craziness that's going on.
Sure.
And, they're tying depression and the mental health issues all together to the craziness of the drugs. And we've known that all along. And a lot of times with depression, they misdiagnose it. I think, and a lot of times, people they want to feel better or whatever, so they start doing the drugs. And with my daughter, they wanted to say she was ADD, then she's ADHD, then finally when she was 14, after she lost her mom, she started experimenting. She wanted to kill the pain, of what she was going through. And, of course, she started trying marijuana, and she started drinking. So they says, she's bipolar. She's starting to self-medicate and stuff. And, they turn it into, okay, this is what's wrong with her. And a lot of times, within a half hour of seeing somebody, they give them a diagnosis, which... it's not that I'm against doctors or whatever. I think a lot of times they want to put a label on us, and they just throw shit up on the wall and see what sticks. And a lot of times, they start you off with these medications, whether it's for depression or psychotic or whatever. You get addicted to these pills.
Oh yeah, it doesn't have to be an opiate. I mean,
exactly.
It can be anything.
Exactly. Well, a few weeks back we were talking about the different medications, and from having cholesterol, all of a sudden, they're on 7 different medications now. And the writer, he was talking about these killings.
Were you able to get your prescription renewed for your ass scratching pill?
Yeah, you like that?
Yeah, I do.
Well, the whole thing is we have to cope with whatever is going on.
Absolutely.
And there is no magic pill. A lot of times those magic pills, they cause more harm than they do good. And a lot of times you get addicted, right off the get. The 10% of us that has these addiction personality or addiction, this brain disease, as we call it. It's not we call it, but that's how they diagnose it. It's a brain disease. So whatever it is, the medication that you start on, and you find that the medical field, when you become addicted to whatever it is, if it's Adderall or people are dying from all of this. Every 24 minutes, somebody dies of medication. That's prescribed by a doctor. And the whole thing is, we just think, because we got this from a doctor, that it's okay. Or it can't be harmful to us. But it's very harmful to us. The pharmaceutical companies, okay, I think I read that a while back. For so much grams of cocaine, it's like $20,000 on the street. For the same amount of grams of the opiates, or Vicodin, or hydrocodone, or whatever you want to call it, it was like over $1 million plus.
It was $1 million plus.
So it's it's the drug dealer that is prescribed, by a doctor, and we think it's okay.
Yeah, Sam, the interesting thing is when I look back, aside from the physical injuries, I started having panic attacks in July of '96, and rather than finding out why are you feeling this way, It's, well, let's mask the feelings.
Exactly.
So it's or mask the symptoms. You know, if you're not if you're not having the panic attacks and everything's okay, we haven't done a thing to address what was causing the panic attacks. However, if you don't have them, then you're cured. And, you know, so it's antidepressants. It was one after another until they found one that works. You know, you talk about throwing stuff at the wall until it sticks.
Right.
Well, then your body gets used to that medication, so that you start to have them. They start to come back. Well, then they put me on the benzodiazepines. You know, the Xanax, the Ativan, the Valium. You know, those things. Well, again, what are you doing? You're numbing everything out.
Exactly.
You're still not dealing with the issue. What the underlying issue is. And over that 18-year period, you know, you wonder, okay, this leads to this. Like you're talking about the cholesterol medication, which leads to something for diabetes, which leads to something for cluster headaches, which leads to, you know, it's one pill after another. And they started looking at the concussions. You know, all right, well, maybe it's the concussions. The interesting thing is now, after 8 months, no panic attacks, no depression, no anxiety. Talk about somebody who should be depressed or anxious or having panic attacks. I'm like the poster child. Haven't had one, and I'm not on any medications. Well, then you start wondering if 18 years ago, if they just said, let's figure out what's going on rather than throwing a pill at it.
Exactly.
You know what would happen? There's a series on HBO right now, and I don't know what it's called, but they're talking with war vets that are coming back now with PTSD and everything else, and there's a whole other issue now with the VA hospitals and everything that's going on. But these guys are talking about these doctors with the opiates, the benzodiazepines, the antidepressants, and what is going on is these guys are hooked on these drugs, and then they stop taking them because they don't like the way they make them feel. Because these guys want to feel, they just want to get better.
Exactly.
And then they get suicidal, you know. And it's just like you're talking about with this, you know, recent incident in California. But I want to ask you a question because I've been away for a few days. What, you know, I know it's Flint, Genesee County, you know, kind of business as usual, but 4 people and a dog shot in Flint on Monday. On Sunday, somebody in Lake Fenton, first shooting there.
Yes.
You know?
Yep.
And so here we go. Let's throw a Band-Aid at it. What's the governor say? He's going to send 8 more state troopers to Flint. What do those 8 state troopers cost? And I love state troopers. Nothing against our guys in blue and ladies in blue. But salary, benefits, everything else, if you took a fraction of that money towards education, awareness, social programs,
exactly.
You know, wouldn't we be a lot better off?
Exactly. I think the big thing is, you know, we've lost so much from the Flint police and stuff like that, so they sent in the state troopers. I think that's what that's all about.
Yeah.
But, you know, the whole thing is, we've talked about this before, most of the drugs that come through Genesee County, they come right through Flint. Mm-hmm. You know, then it's just, and of course, you know, that's when it's sent out to the suburbs around Flint.
Well, even, you know, you would think, or I would assume you would think, from an outsider's point of view, if you're looking at Michigan, you would think that the drug hub would be Detroit, and then it would go out from there. But from what I've been able to ascertain, it really is Flint. It comes into Flint because of the 69 and 75, the way they cross.
Yep.
And then it's going north to Saginaw, south to Pontiac, south to Detroit, but it's all staying right here. You know, I looked at a statistic. In 1960, the population of Flint was 192,000 people. The end of 2013, we were down to 96,000. Well, you lose half of your population, so half of the tax base, right off the bat. You know, some of the schools that we've gone into and spoke. How many of those schools used to represent 4 schools?
Exactly.
You know, the consolidation.
Yeah.
You know, there isn't an easy answer. I'm not proposing that there is, but something's got to change.
Exactly. You know, we talked a little bit earlier about depression and the mental health issues and stuff like that. After the loss of my daughter, I was in a world of depression. And 2 months into it, I had a hard time getting out of bed. My whole body ached. I just didn't have the drive to even get out of bed. Finally, my wife, she says, honey, you need to go talk to somebody. So, of course, I went to a therapist. And I love my therapist. She she would cry right along with me.
Yeah.
And but in the process, she says, Sam, you really need to sleep. I think if you slept, that might help. So she sent me over to the psychiatrist, the person, I guess, that writes the prescription. And we started off with just something to sleep. And I really didn't want any medication, and I was really worried about getting used to, the sleeping pills or whatever. Because that's what happens. There's a problem, and instead of dealing with that problem in a different way, you're prescribed something. Now what happens is your body has this medication, whether it's sleep or whatever. But
You take a pill to go to sleep, take a pill to wake up, because when you wake up, you're groggy and
exactly. Within 4 months, I was on 5 different medications, and the last time I went in to see this doctor, that's what he says to me. How's that working out? And I says, I'm still groggy. I'm still not sleeping. I'm still depressed. And he says, well, maybe we need to change this medication. I says, you know what? Maybe I'm just supposed to feel.
Our kids we are not, as a society, equipping our children with
Exactly.
coping skills.
Exactly. You're going to have failures. You're going to have losses. You're going to have things aren't going to go your way. And if we don't know how to cope, if we think that there's just a pill that's going to do this for us, we're just asking for a bunch of trouble. And that's what it is. The pharmaceutical companies, they want us to be medicated. And that's why I think of all these killings and stuff. We read that article before, that they're on these toxic, 4 or 5 different medications.
It becomes a cocktail. It becomes a cocktail in
Exactly.
itself, because one interacts with another in ways they were never intended to do so.
Thank you, Charlie. I like that.
Yeah. Hey, every once in a while I come up with a good one, Sam.
Oh yeah, I couldn't find the words, and you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, our show here, it's to open up the public's eyes. And we are not professionals. We're not really educated in a certain field or whatever, but we're trying to educate ourselves on what's going on with society.
Yeah, but I will say that both of us have had the best, most expensive education available.
Exactly.
We've lived it, and
Exactly.
and we're surviving it.
Yeah. Exactly. As you know, as I went through this, I just thought as an addict that it was their choice. And come to find out, it's not their choice.
No.
The addiction takes over your life, and nobody wants to be an addict of anything. But yeah, it takes over your life, and you become a criminal. You forget the people you love because that drug is just driving you. And it's not that you love the drug, but it's like you have to have this drug or you're going to get sick.
Well, and you will physically get sick.
Exactly.
I mean, the physical, there's physical withdrawal, physical dependence. There's psychological withdrawal and psychological dependence.
Exactly.
And they're two vastly different things, different topics, different areas, but they're both terrible. Going through physical withdrawal, when you feel that onset of withdrawal, you will do anything just to make that stop. You don't want to get high. You don't want to numb yourself. You're not looking for anything other than to make this stop.
Exactly. In our society, they keep saying, well, heroin is making a comeback. Heroin's on the rise again. Every time you pick up a newspaper or you hear something on the TV, that's what they're talking about. But what's happening is 4 out of 5 heroin users, they get addicted to opiates or pain medicine. Okay, so it starts there. Now what happens is when the doctor gives you medication and you become an addict, the doctor cuts you off and he doesn't want to see you anymore. Mm-hmm. Okay, so what happens is you end up turning to the street because you have to have your medication. And what you find out is for Vicodin it costs $6, $10 a pill, where you can get a hit of heroin or whatever for $10. And
the OxyContin that I was on, those 80 milligram pills,
yeah.
I never did, but I could have sold them
$80 or something?
$80 a pill, and I was getting 90 of them a month. $7,200 is what I could have sold them to somebody who would have resold them for even more.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know what they would have cost on the street, but it was $1 a milligram.
Exactly.
I mean, that's...
Exactly.
That's insane. So what happens with the addict, and you and I have spoken about this, is when they are still at the point where they are sustaining their lifestyle, then they have the money, they will pay for the prescription drugs on the black market, and then when they lose the ability to pay for those, they go to what's the cheapest alternative, and it's heroin.
Exactly. When Community Parent was formed, I was talking with the senator. We're not going to name that senator, but what an idiot. Okay.
Now listen, Mr. Kerry believes that. He's no longer a senator. He's now our. Never mind. I'll shut up.
This senator,
Secretary of Windsurfing, I think is his title.
He says, Sam, I don't know, what you're going to do by trying to get rid of drugs. There's so much money that there's corruption, and that's the key. Okay, there's so much money in it, and there's corruption that why bother? I told the senator, I says, so what do you want us to do? You want us to just sit on our hands and just not do nothing because there's corrupt people? What it is we need to hold our politicians accountable. Our politicians, they work for the people, or they're supposed to. But I can't say that all of them, just like doctors, but we need to hold them accountable. What happens is they run for office, and I think a lot of times they have good intentions. Then they get to Washington, and the lobbyist starts throwing money their way to get things passed or to get things the way they want, and they forget why they went there, because the money corrupts you big time. It's the root of all evil. And as a people, we need to hold our politicians to a higher standard. We need to let them know who they are working for. It's not the big businesses. It's not the ones that's throwing money at them. It's the constituents, the ones that voted for them. Those are the people they're supposed to represent. And if we just turn our back and put our heads in the sand and don't hold these people accountable, then we deserve what we get.
Well, it's funny. A few weeks ago, we had Kristen on as our guest.
Right.
And based on some of the things that she said, and we've got a great supporter in Tony Brown, and some of the things that he shared with us, and is it Joe Graves?
Joe Graves.
Another great supporter. You have these people that, and I'm using them as a positive example, that really, I feel, truly have the best interests of society and of their constituency.
Exactly.
At the core. But I started thinking about you had mentioned, and it's very true, follow the money. What's driving this? It's money. It's the corruption of money. So if you think about, if this was, you could flip it right around. look at the lobbyists in Washington, D.C., the PACs, that are for alcohol, tobacco, drugs, the pharmaceutical companies. The money is enormous. So how do you combat that? Well, you need a PAC or PACs that are anti-alcohol, anti-tobacco, anti-drug, both illegal drugs, but also the legal drugs. Well, most of these organizations, if you think about it, look at two sides of the coin. You've got somebody that, and I'll pick on Brighton, and because I think they do a great job. They are owned by St. John Providence Healthcare. It is in their best interests to attack this problem. Then you have the Department of whatever. Well, think about it. If you attack the problem and reduce the need for their services, well, if they're being corrupted by money, do they really want to see the problem go away?
No. I came across something for tumors, and they've been trying to approve this for 6 or 7 years. This has been proven that it will shrink the tumor and actually get rid of it. But the FDA won't approve it because there's so much money that they're getting kickbacks from the radiation and the chemotherapy. I remember in the 70s. In the 70s, this doctor come on TV and he says, "I found a cure for cancer." And the TV went dead. It went dead.
Wow.
I came across a doctor, I believe her name is Hilda Clark. She's dead now, but Hilda Clark worked for a pharmaceutical company, and she was like the scientist that found what worked for cancer. And she said every time I would come up with something that worked, they would give her the pat on the back, and they would take her findings and they'd put it on the shelf. So it's not, there's so much money in the treatment, but they don't want nobody to get cured. And that's what I'm finding that, we were talking about that article that guy did about all the different, from the cholesterol, all of a sudden he's on 7 different medications. I think we have a great country, but somewhere along the line we forgot about that we want to treat the symptoms and not actually cure anybody. And a lot of times what happens is we get on medication to fight the symptoms, but nobody ever gets cured. And a lot of times when you start on medication, you're on it for the rest of your life. You're on it for the rest of your life.
It's interesting. There was the opiate that we discussed a few weeks ago, where the FDA panel, the panel of doctors,
Right.
were adamantly opposed to it, but the FDA still approved it.
Exactly. Zohydro.
Okay, yeah, Zohydro. And you and I, it's interesting the way it's occurred the last couple of weeks. We've talked a lot about homeopathic and natural cures for things, as far as foods and exercise. And my counselor, my therapist, I love the guy.
Mm-hmm.
Peter Healy, Fenton, Michigan. I'll give him a plug any day of the week.
Sure.
Never once suggested a pill. Never once suggested. You know what he said to me? Charlie, eat right, sleep well, exercise, talk to people, talk to me, talk to God, pray, meditate.
Wherever you find your inner peace.
Exactly. And lo and behold, it's working. Well, but you know what? He's not getting the recognition. He's not getting the money. He's not getting the 10 days in Bermuda or Jamaica with his family, courtesy of XYZ Pharmaceutical out of Switzerland.
Sure.
we have got to, you and I and everybody that we can convince to join us, we have got to say enough. I mean, enough's enough.
Exactly.
It's a whole generation that we have the potential to lose.
Exactly. You know, a lot of times, you know, our government feels like this problem only covers 10% of the people. Okay, but you know, we've discussed this before. That's why they don't really want to put a lot into it, is because it's only 10%. This is the minority. We don't need to really, you know, it'll work itself out or whatever. But I think because of the stigma, they just feel, this 10%, these are losers. Okay, but everybody's affected. Everybody's affected. Every 24 minutes somebody dies. Every 24 minutes. And that is just nuts. And we have to say enough is enough, you know, because it's not getting any better. And if we don't come together as a people, it's going to be at your doorsteps. It's going to be your family member. It's going to be your daughter, your child. That's going to be affected by it.
All right, so but look at the ripple effect of that 10%. You know, you drop that pebble in the pond.
Sure.
And you know, and it ripples out. Take Brianna.
Yeah.
Okay. Take Brianna's mother. I mean, any one of them, but let's take Brianna.
Sure.
We lost her to this disease.
Yeah.
But it affected. So there's one person. It affected you, Anaya, her brothers, her aunts, her uncles, her cousins, her schoolmates. That one person, the effect goes so far beyond that 10%.
Exactly.
And that's the emotional impact. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
If you want to talk about finances, because whether we want to admit it or not, so much of this does come back to money. You know, we've discussed that people that are in prison in the United States for nothing more than marijuana possession charges, it costs the U.S. taxpayer between $1 and $2 billion a year for incarceration. There is no rehabilitation. When I went into Jackson Prison a couple weeks back, they said, you want to make a real good criminal? Send a low-level criminal to jail. You want to make a real good addict or dealer? Send a low-level dealer to jail. We're not rehabilitating. We're just locking them up, letting them serve their time, and it's costing us $1 to $2 billion directly. On top of that, now you have loss of spousal support. So if John or Jane Doe is locked up, they're no longer contributing financially to their family. You've got loss of the emotional support, the parent, the spouse. Well, it affects the family. The family then turns to the state, the global state, and now it's, as Kristen said, you get a baby born that spends 3 weeks in the NICU. That child is then followed for 18 years until they graduate from high school at a cost of millions of dollars. It's insane. Where's their incentive other than what should be their incentive? The incentive should be, this is the right thing to do.
Exactly. Well, that's what it is. They don't want to spend the money up front, you know, for long-term care because they don't see what it does right now. They want something. I need something to come back with, you know, or whatever. But a lot of times, if we send these people to therapy or long-term care right off the get, we can nip it in the butt. But we don't. Oh no, we're not going to spend that kind of money. But in the long run, they spend well over that. Mm-hmm. Well over that. You know, we've had this war on drugs since the 70s, and this war hasn't gone away. It's gotten worse. It's costing us a lot more money, but we have more prisons, more guards, but not enough treatment centers.
Yeah.
Not enough mental health. Mental health has actually have gone away, and I believe I read somewhere where it was 50% of the people that's in prison. It's a mental health issue.
Oh, yeah, and I would bet it's probably even higher.
Yeah, it's a mental health issue. Here's somebody that has mental problems, and even drug abuse it's a mental issue.
Sure.
I think we're the only country in the world that we send people that are sick. We send them to prisons, and I don't have all the answers, but when you keep doing the same thing over and over and you're getting the same results, maybe it's time that we do something different.
Yeah.
We are the best country in the world. We are only 5% of the population, but we absorb 80% of all medicine that's made. We absorb 80%. Why is that? Because we just think there's a pill for everything.
Right.
And there isn't. It's really, here's something that's kind of funny, but it's not. But if you're ever at a party and somebody says they got a headache, and you'll see 10 people reaching for their purses, oh, I got Vicodin, I got Percocet, I got this, I got Xanax, I got, we just think we are doctors because the doctor prescribed something for us. Oh, this is what works for me. But we're not doctors. And really, by law, if you are giving medicine to somebody that you can actually go to jail for it. But nobody pushes that issue because we just think that it's okay because we got it from a doctor. Doctors are not God. Hold them accountable, okay? Get second, third opinions. Don't put all your trust in the doctor, okay? They're not perfect. They make mistakes. And to be honest with you, okay, here's a doctor, okay, that's in an emergency room, okay? My daughter is so messed up on heroin, and they want to send her to jail, but they want to make sure she's going to be okay. So they send her to the emergency room. And here's a doctor that's yelling at her, has no compassion because you did this to yourself. Now, as a doctor, you should know about addiction, but you don't.
Yeah.
They're not educated in that field. They don't know what to do for you.
Well, remember we had discussed this. This is one of our first shows, right? The state of New York.
Yeah.
To be certified as an addiction specialist in the state of New York, once you're an MD, it requires an extra 8 hours of training.
Exactly.
And now you're a specialist. Well, what's even sadder about that is the typical GP who hangs the shingle throughout their education and residency and everything else, they typically they typically spend the equivalent of 1 or 2 or 3 days at most on addiction issues. The nurses, the RNs, the LPNs, they get more training about it than even the doctors.
To be honest with you, I mean, doctors don't really get enough training even in homeopathic or food, nutrition. Here, I mean, that's a medical field. Yeah. They should be a lot more treatment in our food that we eat. Dr. Oz, I mean, he's got answers for any kind of sickness that you have. Well, why? Because he's put all his, this is where medicine really came from.
Absolutely. We talk about this, I think, every week, and I'm sure we will and continue. Aspirin comes from the willow tree. Exactly. You look at, like you were saying with, turmeric, cardamom, garlic, olive oil, lemons. If you look at Eastern medicine, if you're in China, if you're in Japan, if you're in Thailand, the Philippines, and you get sick, you go to a doctor, but he's not a Western doctor. You go in and they're examining things that to us do seem so foreign. But they're looking at the whites of your eyes, they're looking at your tongue, at your gums, at your hands, at your feet, and they're going to prescribe a tea. a soup.
Yep.
Something that's going to cure you from the inside out, that they're picking, and it's something that's natural.
Exactly.
We've got this problem in this country right now with hepatitis B and hepatitis C, and as you said, we're 5% of the population. We consume 80% of all medications. Yet, 60 miles from here, we have Canada. Okay? You can go to Canada, or you can go to Europe if you have hepatitis B or C. And if you're a Canadian citizen, because of the socialized healthcare, which I am not a fan of or a proponent of, or if you're in Europe, they will treat you with ozone therapy. United States, the FDA, won't embrace it. Well, I was reading the book by the singer of the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Anthony Kiedis, and he was diagnosed with hepatitis B or C. I don't remember which one. He gets treatment with ozone therapy, and it's undetectable in his blood right now. It's not an opiate. It's not, nobody's making a lot of money off of it, and that's why. You know what? But if you have hepatitis B or C and it's a chronic condition, look at the money they can make off of that patient over the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years.
Exactly. I believe that we are lab rats
Oh,
for the pharmaceutical company to get rich, and that's where we're at with that. Again, it's not, I grew up in Lebanon. I came over here when I was 9 years old in 1969, and there was no doctor in the whole town. The only time a doctor would actually come, they would bring him from the city, and he was just to pronounce you dead. But just growing up, here, warm this up, I got a headache, okay, have this tea, or for a backache, I remember they did something where they stuck this thing on your back, and it helped the pain. It was weird. I mean, you would. I remember I'd get sore throats, my tonsils, and this lady would put her finger right down your throat, and she'd move them around, and you would feel better. Yeah. It was crazy. It's like she didn't go to school or anything. It was just something that was passed down from her grandmother or her mother or whatever, and she picked it up.
See, now, then you come over to the United States, and like in my family, my paternal grandfather, God bless him, if you had a cold, you got whiskey. Now, I still wish I could do that, but I had to turn that card in. But on the serious side, I remember as a little kid and as a teenager, if you got a toothache, you took a clove and you put it, near the gum line, mm-hmm. and the clove, the antiseptic qualities, I think cloves are antibacterial, antiseptic, anti-inflammatory. They have like 3 or 4 different characteristics. And you take that little thorny clove and you stick it in your mouth, and in 15 minutes, a half an hour, your breath smells better and your tooth doesn't hurt.
Well, that's funny you said that, because for earaches, we would cut off like a piece of the garlic and put it in our ear. and it worked. It works. I don't know what it does, but I guess if you got an infection, it's an antibiotic or antiseptic.
Yeah, it's antiseptic, anti-inflammatory,
exactly.
antibacterial.
So it worked, I remember like silly stuff, you say, what? But if you got stung by a bee, they would take like a fig off a tree that wasn't ripe yet, and the milk from the fig, you would rub it against it, and it took the pain away, and it brought down the swelling. Yeah. And it's like just simple stuff, but it worked. But again, I think the modern day medicine, it's really about profits. It's about the money, and not so much about taking care of. I think as far as surgeries and stuff, we are top in our field, mm-hmm. but we really lack when it comes to the pharmaceutical end of it.
I've been getting, for years, I've been getting fluid taken off my knees. And, I mean, you're not treating the problem. You're you're not going to the root cause. All you're doing is removing the inflammation. And I've had some acupuncture, and it works. But it's, you're never going to find insurance to cover it.
Yeah.
Not that I have insurance, but you're never going to find insurance to cover it. And if you go to the doctor, and I have a great doctor, as I've said, he wants to say, okay, we'll go with cortisone, and then we'll go with Suparts, and then if that doesn't work, we already know you need a double knee replacement. Well, now you've got, you're the bionic man, and guess what they're going to put you on when you come out of the hospital?
And it's
You're
not
going to be
necessarily
on
that your body's going to, might reject it. So,
Right.
I mean, you're putting a foreign object in your body.
Yeah.
So it's a hit or miss. It's not really taking care of the problem. But if they took care of the inflammation, where we never got to that,
Right.
you could save your knee.
Yeah.
But again, to be honest with you, you go to a doctor, and a lot of times, if you got good insurance, they want to run every test.
Mm-hmm.
I was in a car accident in 1990. And from that accident, I was sent to first, X-ray, and in the X-ray it showed arthritis in the back and slight herniation, L3, 4, and 5. Okay, well, the doctor says, I'm sending you over to the surgeon, the neurosurgeon. Well, from that, the neurosurgeon, he wanted another X-ray done, the CAT scan. And from the CAT scan, it was the dye test. And then from the dye test, he wanted the MRI. Well, before finally when I got to see the surgeon, I found out that he owned this place where all these tests were doing, and a lot of them are at least $1,000 a pop, if not $2,000 or $3,000, whatever the insurance company will pay. But it's like, you got a good insurance, let's suck it dry.
We say this, you call a new doctor, never mind what you want to see him for. First question, what kind of insurance do you have?
Exactly.
Very first question.
And a lot of times they want their copay up front.
Oh, yeah.
It's not, you got to...
Well, if they're smart with me, they're going to get their copay up front. So if they want to get it at the back end, they're going to spend more on postage trying to collect it from me than they will ever get on their copay.
You know what? Well, let's back up a little bit. I understand, like, these doctors, their insurance policies and all this is costing unreal. I did the shelving for this one OBGYN, and I give him a price on the shelving, and he said, what's a couple more thousand? I'm already $1 million in debt. And it seems like,
Well, OBGYNs have the highest malpractice insurance out there.
Well, the whole thing is, as a country, I find there's a lot of technical fields that's wanted here in America, okay? And a lot of times, we don't have a lot of people that study in those fields that we ask for them to come from outside the country, and here where we're needing jobs right here, people are in desperate needs of jobs, and it seems like this is what we need here in America. Our government should say, hey, let me send you to school. This is what I need here.
Right.
People, it's like when they look at how much they're going to owe by the time they get out of school, it drives you crazy. And then you're forever in debt,
Well, open up the Yellow Pages or on the YP.com or whatever they call them. I don't even know if they still have Yellow Pages. But it's easy to find a doctor, but it's real hard to find a plumber when you need one. Or an electrician, or somebody with a skilled trade.
Right.
And and we're all guilty of it at some point or another. But as parents, we're talking to our kids, and it's like doctor, lawyer, nurse, accountant, engineer, scientist, teacher, this, that, the other thing.
Well, the whole thing is, if we're going to pay
our plumbers, electricians, contractors, people in construction and the trades. I was talking to somebody about this weekend. Some of these, the craftsman style bungalows up on I guess it would be the north side of Miller Road, that post World War II era built. You walk in these homes and it's real hardwood floors from wall to wall.
Plastic and stuff, yeah.
Plaster and lath walls. Do you know what it would cost if you wanted to build a house like that today? You couldn't. You could not afford to do it.
Exactly.
The craftsmanship is amazing.
Yeah.
And then you look at the medicine. I was reading a thing on during the Civil War in particular, and battlefield hospitals, and the use of leeches.
Oh yeah.
Leeches are an amazing animal.
Yeah.
Eastern medicine, they still use them today. Western medicine,
No.
it's fish bait. Okay, maggots. The first thing when you hear the word maggot, everybody gets all. But they were putting maggots on stumps of amputees, like during the Civil War, because they would eat the
infection, right?
the infection, the rotten flesh.
Yeah.
And even though they're a disgusting little bug, they are, in a sense, they are antiseptic. They are antibacterial. They cure. You look at, there was a show on, and it was in Asia. These ladies are getting, pedicures. And they're sticking their feet in these like bowls of water, and there's these little like goldfish that eat the dead skin off their legs and their feet. They're not going to a podiatrist to get their corn and bunion removed.
Right.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
There's so much. If you and even forget Eastern medicine. If you look at our Native Americans, they had a cure or something that offered a palliative effect for everything.
Yeah.
And it was the leaf from here, the twig from here, the root from here. You let this milk intentionally go sour, and all these different. There was no pharmacy.
Exactly. That's the whole thing. Is we want the listeners to just open their minds. Don't keep your eyes closed. Ask questions. Go see. Get a second opinion, a third opinion. Don't. At one time I was at the farmer's market, and the lady next to me, she come talking to me. She said, my son, he had a tumor, and they took the tumor out, and ended up taking his eye socket out and stuff, and then it was like there's nothing left we can do for him. Just make him feel comfortable. Take him home to die. And this lady says, I couldn't just accept that. So that's where I heard about Dr. Clark. Mm-hmm. And she said, I came across this doctor that, it was natural stuff. There wasn't no medicine or whatever. But he was 12, she said this was 12 years. Now he's still alive. And they told me that he was, take him home to die.
Yeah.
So that's just it, With the internet these days and everything else, everything's at our disposal right in front of our face, Doctors are not God. They haven't a clue. I love that cancer treatment center and
Cancer Treatment Centers of America.
Yeah, the one lady, her doctor says, "Oh, you're gonna die in a few months and stuff," and so she goes to that cancer treatment center, and she says to the doctor, he says, there's no expiration date on your feet,
right.
We're just gonna give you the treatment,
right?
And that's just it. There's only one God.
There's two things that I wanted to, based on what you just said. One is, once I stopped self-medicating, I was having headache issues and some other issues, and because of the concussions and then the compressions and herniations, I had some swelling on the brain, and which surprised me because I thought I sat on it, but I guess it was in my head, and they were talking about putting a shunt, and where it would drain the fluid into my stomach, and I had gone down to U of M, and there was I want to say it was a nurse practitioner who said that recommended that and I can never pronounce this right. I think it's craniosacral massage. It's because your spine and your brain, it's like in a closed loop with the fluid. And by doing that, I've been able to avoid that. Now, the question I have for you, with the new farmers market, has there ever been a Eastern medicine vendor? I mean, I know we can go there, we can get good bread, whole grain, locally milled ground bread. We can get fresh local produce. We can get local honey. Some of those things are there, but has anybody ever, I mean, I have no idea, has anybody ever set up a homeopathic, natural, remedy type, Eastern medicine type?
No, you know what? I came across this thing about different herbs, and I posted it, and I got it with all my spices and herbs, like this herb, what it's good for.
Right.
This spice, what it helps. So it's like, wow, all you gotta do is just add it to your cooking,
Right.
and this helps headaches. This helps, like massaging your skin, your tightness of your muscles or whatever, different things like that.
Well, I use lemon juice because of the kidney stones. I use lemon juice in water every day. Because
I do too, because I get heartburn if I don't. So.
Yeah, but it's good for you because it changes the pH alkaline balance or whatever in your urine, and if you're going to develop kidney stones, it'll help combat that.
Well, that's just it, and that's there's all kinds of herbs and spices that's very healthy for us. I think God put everything on earth for us.
Oh, everything that we need is here.
Exactly. And man come along and he screwed everything up. From the air to the water to, we don't get the same thing in our foods anymore. But, the whole thing is, talking about this, the FDA and our government, they keep putting hormones and antibiotics. I was reading on, in our meat and stuff. And they were saying that a lot of these poultry or our lambs or our beef or they don't need any of this stuff. But what they do is they do it so they don't get sick because they're not getting the exercise. They can eat less food. It's all about the bottom line, and they don't care. Listen to Dr. Oz, he says, all our fruits and vegetables, they have pesticides, and then all the hormones and antibiotics that's put into the thing. Oh, that was another thing, too. They were saying because they're putting all this antibiotic in the poultry and stuff, a lot of, when we get sick, the antibiotic don't do nothing for us, which it's like, come on, start educating yourself, man. Get off your butt, start reading, get on the internet. See what's happening, Our government is not working for us either, okay? When they wrote up our Constitution, okay, it was to protect us from the government. Right. So they don't get so big, that, and we've just closed our eyes, that we just put all our trust in all these people. The doctors, the government, and they're driven by money. It's driven by greed. Wake up, America! Wake up!
Well, it's funny, Sam. We go into these schools and you have to go through metal detectors, and we can't talk about God. And you've got the ACLU. If a town puts up a nativity scene that's too nice, the ACLU is going to sue the town because there should be separation of church and state. Well, if you go back to the original writers and signers of the Constitution, the separation of church and state, and this isn't somebody's opinion, this is documented, it was never intended to be separate. You were never supposed to protect the state from the church. It was meant to protect the church from the state.
Exactly.
And we flipped it right around. There was, you talk about kids with self-esteem, and everybody wants to have all these friends, and we in the school system, the public school system, we could teach about Hitler, Hitler had millions of followers. Jesus had 12.
Yep.
But they're not being taught that.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well,
and that's it. On all our money, it says, "In God we trust."
yeah.
And under God and liberty. And
one nation under God.
But somewhere it's like they're taking them out little by little, and we are just saying, okay.
Yeah.
I don't push religion on nobody, but that's my freedom. That is my freedom. That's your freedom that they're taking away. Little by little, our eyes are closed and government is getting too big.
Well, even if you can go to Barnes & Noble and you walk into the self-help section. If you want to cure yourself or try to live a healthy lifestyle, there is every self-proclaimed self-help guru under the sun. Okay? And they all want to tell you how, not all, but many of them will say, it's not about God, it's all within yourself. You are the center of your universe. You are the power. You are the this. It's all about this. Well, that's insane. It's absolutely insane. And it's okay to teach that in the schools, but you can't. You find me a human being, regardless of religion, regardless of spirituality. You find me a human being that can find something wrong with the Ten Commandments. What? Don't lie, don't commit adultery, don't steal, don't murder, don't. It's.
And the whole thing is, it's just common sense.
It's common sense.
I think if you're atheist or whatever religion you are, it makes sense. I think atheists, they say just be a good person or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, you don't steal. That's the Ten Commandments. I came across this thing that I wanted to share with you. It says, we've been torn apart and pit against each other with politics, religion, gender, sexuality, race, ethnicity, and age. This is how they control us. It's time to unite and put them to rest. Makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? They just keep separating us little by little. They're putting us against each other. Okay? Let's wake up, America. The Second Amendment right was for us to have weapons, not for our neighbors, but against government, so we can hold them in check. Mm-hmm. And little by little, they're taking our liberties, they're taking our freedoms, okay, little by little, because we're asleep. We're not watching them. We're not keeping our eyes on the ball here, and that's what's happening. America, I want you to wake up. I want you to join Community Parent. I want you to join our cause. It's not just about drugs. It's about everything. It's about everything that's going on today in our country. Okay? We need to come together. We need to come together, hold them responsible. Okay? They work for us. They work for us. And let's not forget that. But they seem to, we've got these politicians that's been there forever, that they need to be thrown out on their ears, let alone on their ass. But the whole thing is we vote on just name recognition. We vote when people mess up. We keep them in office. We don't hold them accountable. Okay? Please, we can't, one hand can't clap by itself. But together, man, we can make wonders happen. And together, we can make a difference. And I can't stress that enough. I got thrown into this, and I think God wants my voice out there. Because I think the louder we are, the more voices come together, the more things get done. And I'm counting on everybody coming together, joining us, unite, and let's throw some people out on their ass. Okay, let's get rid of this and get back to old America when everybody took care of each other, when we were a village again. Okay, we sit there and we want to take care of everybody around the world, but we're forgetting who's number one. Take care of each other first. Then we can take care of whoever. Okay? But it starts at home. It starts at home. I love this country. I wasn't born here, but people all around the world came here because this is the best country in the world. And we're looked upon everywhere like shit now, because somewhere they forgot about the Constitution and really what made us great.
I agree. And we're not going to shut up.
No. Please, but we want you to join the conversation. We want to hear your thoughts.
Yeah.
If we're talking out of our butts, or if we're making sense. Thank you for joining us today. We love talking, and we love you to join us. All right. I think that we have reason to talk about, and the drugs things is just one part of this. Okay, it's just one part. So thanks for joining us today. Love you, America.